Attracting and retaining talent is one of the big things. It's as I said before, it's all about place now, and not so much about just the specific job. Sorry. One thing that we've said a lot, or I've said a lot, and we can't really get legislators to understand it, is that art grants to arts and cultural organizations are much like tax credits to small businesses. The state extends a tax credit to a business to entice them to stay in Michigan, to create and retain jobs, and to provide money back and to funnel money back into the economy with that money that they're able to save. Well, that's the same thing with nonprofit organizations. You make sure that they're already going to stay in Michigan, but you provide them with that support to make sure that they can retain and attract, and as well as provide the quality of life in the community, as well as anyways, I think while the fiscal reality, we've consistently been asking for $10 million for the state arts funding. We've asked for actually just this year we asked for stable funding at $2.3 million. We got a $200,000 bump just because of the money received from the National Endowment for the Arts. Right now, out of that $2.56 million that we received this year, the state's support for the arts is actually only about $1.4 million. So that's $1.4 million out of a budget that's about $42 billion. So we're talking drops in the bucket. We just heard the other day that number one, the state's going to probably lapse about $100 million in funds that won't be used, won't be spent throughout their departments this year. And we heard again that tax revenues were increased. Perceived tax revenues from the final quarter of 2010 are going to be great, $200 million or greater than we thought. So it's $1.4 million in all this money in the state, and the huge impact that the arts organizations in this have. We're not asking for $1 billion, not asking for $50 million. I think that you fund the arts not to fund the organizations that do what they do. You fund them to support them. You support the work that they're doing because you know that the state is a partner with these organizations and has a commitment and has an interest in knowing that its communities are armed with all the tools necessary to make them bustling centers and have young people like you working and living in their communities. Two of the things that we've typically asked for, as I said, is we want to restore funding to $10 million to the Michigan Council for Arts and Cultural Affairs for fiscal year 2012. And we also want to explore sustainable funding strategies. Every year we have to go back to the legislature and say, okay, here's what we want this year. That process starts in February and goes all the way until it just ended 3 weeks ago at the end of September. What sustainable funding will do would allow us to have a stable funding amount every single year that isn't based off of the state budget and what taxes bring in every single year. We're actually in the process right now of creating a document, a transition document for the next governor. We've asked him to consider putting a 3% tax on entertainment tickets. So if you go to the football game, that's a 3% tax. On a $50 ticket, that's $1.50 extra. This tax could bring in over $150 to $200 million a year. What we're telling the gubernatorial campaigns is that we'd like to share this money. We'd like to share it with libraries in Michigan who are also struggling due to revenue sharing cuts, and we also like to share it with cities and communities dealing with public safety, because we think with all these events there's a lot of costs that deal with securing communities. So this money would be funneled through revenue sharing to cities that could be paid for cops or security at stadiums. Another thing that we ask for in arts education is we want to make sure that there's not a mandate, but that students in Michigan have are required to take arts education in pre-kindergarten all the way up through high school. Right now there is a high school graduating requirement for the arts. You have to take 1 credit hour of arts. We want to extend them from 8th grade all the way down to the beginning. So we're also working with the candidates from that end. So I hope I answered the questions that you had.
Yeah, the ones that I sent you.
Yeah.
Someone also asked, like, the school is called Literature, Science, and the Arts, and there's many prereqs. Why do you think they don't require that you have to take an art class in that school?
That's the university.
Yeah.
Well, that would be your whoever is the head of the head of the school there.
Yeah.
I can't tell you as to why they would do that.
No, why do you think?
Why do
People
I
were
think
talking about.
a university would do that? I mean, it could be that I don't know. I'm not completely familiar with the universities and the way that they set up the credit schedule. It could just be that maybe I don't know. I'm sorry.
We'd like to open up the floor now for any other questions that you guys have.
You said there's like $1.5 billion revenue from arts. What's like some of the big examples of the revenue that comes from the arts?
1.5 billion.
Like you said, like a big amount of revenue comes from the arts, and there's a small amount. You still find like.
So we said 1.8 comes from tourism spending.
Yeah.
So as an example, when someone from out of town is in Detroit to come to the DIA, or to any other number of the organizations throughout the state, it's the money that's spent there. It's the money that's spent in the state because they're going to that organization. So if someone flies into Detroit to go to the Detroit Institute of Arts, they typically count what it costs to get them here, what it costs to lodge you, eat, all of that. The 1.5 billion, that's an income tax. So everyone who works for the arts, whether in the creative industries or in the nonprofit sector, that's the income tax that we all pay to the state every year. Yeah.
You were talking about the entertainment tax, considering implementing retroactive.
Yeah.
And then you said you would share the public safety costs with members. Is there any initiatives where you can benefit from those that from that sharing?
So you're saying how do we pick that?
Yeah, or like
Okay.
person.
Sure. Well, I think we looked at library. I think we are open to partners. In the conversations we've had with legislators, there are a lot of the libraries in Michigan are actually in the same, kind of in the worse off than the arts organizations are. And where I grew up in Troy, they're actually considering closing the library because they just don't have enough. They don't get enough money from the state anymore to keep the library open. And additionally, a lot of legislators like that too, because when we have all the unemployed out here, folks that don't have access to computers right now, that's where they're going to get their training. They're trained to build resumes, submit resumes, and actually the state's unemployment agency is partnering with a few libraries as well. Safety, we actually narrowed it down to public safety, but really what it would do is it'd be about $75 to $100 million that would be funneled into revenue sharing for communities. Each community gets a chunk of, so basically with the sales tax, income tax, everything that goes to the state, communities get a chunk of statutorily and through the Constitution. And they basically spend that however. This would just be a bump in that, and they could use it for public safety, but this is where we'd like to use it.
What's the way Michigan Student Caucus members and just University of Michigan students could get involved with ArtServe? And
yeah, you don't even have to get involved with ArtServe. The election is 3 weeks from today. Know who you're voting for. I think a lot of the problems the state has seen in the past 10 years is because we have too many people voting by party. I'm a Democrat, so I'm going to vote for a Democrat. Kind of like that. Instead of really getting a chance to look at the candidates and see what they stand for and what they're about, what they want to do. Get in touch with your local candidates. Just ask them a few questions. I mean, they don't have to be about the arts. Ask them just general stuff about why you want to go to Lansing. We sent out surveys in August. One of the questions on there was, I think there's two basic ones. Was ask them about their support for the arts, and another one was, why do you want to go to Lansing? What do you want to do? Really basic. We received a couple of responses. One response was a guy called me and said that we forgot the check, and said he wasn't going to fill out a candidate survey unless we paid him to do it. And another one said that, I really don't know why I want to go to Lansing. He said, and I really don't know about the arts or any of the other issues he asked about. But that's kind of how I approach my job. I'm currently a city council member, and I just kind of go in there and then learn from there. So these are people you don't want writing legislation, voting for you in Lansing. And there's a lot of them out there. So just get involved. You want to go, in terms of the arts, go and talk to them. Just talk to them about the importance of the arts and the importance of having vibrant communities and having things to do in the community and the arts organizations that are there. And obviously, if you have any questions in terms of talking points or who you want to talk to, you can give us a call and we can provide those to you. Yeah.
I know you were talking about how Michigan is so focused on improving education in the state because that will improve communities and we'll get more people to move here and work. But do you know why they're not willing to fund in our programs themselves that is so been proven to improve education in the students?
Right now, districts are solely focused on math, science, reading, because actually one of the reasons is because that's what they're tested on with the MEAP. That's actually changing in, I think, 2 years. We're going to a nationalized standard test that will include the arts, where they will have to be tested on it, so they will want to teach that stuff in school. But the bottom line right now is, the state's, the way that the state funds education is just completely ruined. It's based solely on an increase in revenue, or in the sales tax, and a 6 mills property insurance. Well, we have, I think we have the highest rate of foreclosures in the country, and the most unemployed people not buying anything. So that it's not very. It was well thought out in 1995, but not today. I think with an influx of money, if they do decide to overhaul education, that there will be more of an effort, I think, by districts to ensure that classes that they do have drama, journalism, everything. But right now, I think they're dealing with $18 million. I was the other night, but they're dealing with an $18 million deficit. And they really don't have a choice but to cut everything besides what they're actually absolutely have to have. Yeah.
How do you allocate? I know you're asking for $10 million of funds or whatever, and right now you have 2.5. How do you allocate those funds? Like, how do you determine where they go?
The State Arts Council, what it does is the money flows from the Treasury and from the general fund to the State Arts Council. The State Arts Council has different programs in place, all the way from operating